Somewhere in your garden this very week, a coneflower is quietly making a decision. It is deciding whether it will bloom straight through Labor Day, or whether it will fade out by mid-August and leave a hole in your border for the rest of the season. And here is the part that surprises people. That decision is not really up to the plant. It is up to you. July is the single most consequential month in a coneflower's entire year, and what you do, or skip, over the next few weeks will echo all the way into next spring. My name is James Scott, and here at Golden Age Gardening, my whole philosophy fits in one sentence. Great gardens are not built on expensive products or complicated systems. They are built on one small, repeatable habit, 30 minutes a day. That is the entire commitment. Any time of day that suits your life, morning coffee in hand, lunch break, evening after supper, the clock does not care. What matters is that you show up daily. Every single task I am about to give you fits inside that 30-minute window, and I will tell you exactly how many of those minutes each one takes. If that kind of practical, honest gardening sounds like your style, take 2 seconds and tap the subscribe button so the next video finds you when your garden needs it. So grab a cup of something, and let me walk you through your July coneflower routine, task by task. Task number 1. Deadhead in the right place, not just at the right time. Daily time required. About 5 minutes. Nearly everyone who grows coneflowers knows spent blooms should come off. Far fewer people know where to make the cut, and that single detail separates a plant that reblooms in wave after wave from a plant that sits there looking exhausted with a forest of bare stems poking up like antennas. Here is what usually happens. A bloom fades, the gardener reaches in, snips just beneath the old cone, and moves on. Quick and satisfying, and wrong. That cut leaves a headless stem doing absolutely nothing. No bud, no branch, no future flower. The plant still spends resources maintaining that stem while it slowly browns and sulks. The better technique costs you maybe 5 extra seconds per bloom. Follow the spent stem downward with your eyes until you find the next lateral bud, side shoot, or branching point. You will notice a small swelling or a tiny developing flower tucked into the joint where a leaf meets the stem. Make your cut just above that point. You have redirected the plant's energy into a flower that was already waiting in the wings. Give it 2 weeks, and the difference is visible from across the yard. Fuller plants, faster rebloom, no ugly stubble. But do not deadhead everything. As July rolls along, deliberately leave the largest, strongest, best-formed cones standing on each mature plant. Those seed heads become a natural bird feeder that runs from October clear into February. Goldfinches will hang upside down off those cones all winter, pulling seeds out one at a time. A bed scalped clean of every cone in summer offers wildlife nothing for 6 straight months. So the balance is simple. Remove the early faded blooms to push more flowers, and let the champions stand for the birds. While you are down there making cuts during your 30-minute walk, tell me in the comments, do you leave seed heads through winter, or cut everything back in fall? Drop your state or USDA zone with your answer. Coneflower care in Zone 3 Minnesota looks nothing like Zone 9 Texas. I read every comment, and your answers shape what I cover next. Task number 2. Let the soil, not the calendar, decide when you water daily time. Required 3 to 4 minutes. You have probably heard coneflowers described as drought tolerant. That is true and misleading at the same time, because it only applies to established plants, ones in the ground at least a full year. Treat a brand new coneflower like a drought-hardened veteran in July heat, and you will watch it crisp up while its older neighbors sail along without a care. An established coneflower carries a root system reaching far beyond its original planting hole, tapping moisture deep underground that a dusty surface gives no hint of. So before watering a mature plant, run one simple test during your daily walk. Push a long screwdriver, or your finger if your soil allows, 6 to 8 inches down. Cool and moist at depth, walk away. That plant needs nothing, no matter how parched the surface appears. Dry all the way down? Then water deeply and slowly. A long, gentle soak that truly penetrates, and leave it alone until that deep layer dries again. Deep and infrequent beats shallow and constant every single time, because shallow sprinkles train roots to loiter near the surface where heat punishes them. A first-season coneflower plays by entirely different rules. Its roots are still mostly confined to the original root ball from the nursery pot, and in July, heat that little block of soil can dry out in 48 hours. Depending on your zone and soil type, a new planting may need water every 2 to 3 days. Fold a quick check on every new plant into your daily half hour. Never assume that because the 5-year-old clumps in the same bed look fine, the one you planted in June is equally fine. They are living in 2 different worlds. Container coneflowers are the thirstiest of all. Pots heat up, dry out, and swing between extremes faster than any garden bed. Give them a daily glance during hot spells, and never let one sit in a saucer of standing water. Soggy roots kill a coneflower faster than drought ever will. And one rule that applies to every coneflower in every situation: water at the soil surface, never over the top of the plant. Wet leaves plus warm, humid summer nights is the exact recipe for every fungal problem we will cover shortly. Keep the foliage dry, and you cancel half your disease risk before it begins. Task number 3. Inspect every strange flower, the moment you notice it. Daily time required. This one rides along with your walk. Call it 2 minutes of focused looking. This is the most important task in the entire video. Everything else affects how well your coneflowers perform this season. This one determines whether your planting survives into next season at all. The threat is called aster yellows. It is caused by a phytoplasma. Think of it as a bacteria-like organism, carried plant to plant by tiny insects called aster leafhoppers. Those leafhoppers feed on infected weeds along roadsides and field edges, then hop into your garden and inject the pathogen straight into your coneflowers as they feed. Once a plant is infected, the phytoplasma travels through the entire vascular system: roots, crown, every stem, every leaf. And here is the hard truth. No cure exists. No spray. No drench. No home remedy. Nothing reverses it. Here is what to watch for. A coneflower that should be purple, pink, white, or orange suddenly pushes out flowers that are green. The cone may be flattened or distorted, sometimes sprouting bizarre little secondary flowers directly out of the main cone in a brushy, broom-like cluster. Widen your view, and you may see yellowing leaves that curl, stunted growth, and stems that look shortened and weak. The whole plant simply looks wrong. The costly mistake goes like this. A gardener snips off the deformed flower and leaves the plant standing. Friends, that deformed bloom is only the symptom. The infection is already everywhere inside that plant, and every day it remains in your bed. Leafhoppers are landing on it, picking up the phytoplasma, and ferrying it to the healthy plants nearby. Removing the flower removes the evidence and leaves the danger fully in place. When you spot these symptoms, the entire plant comes out the very same day. This is the one job in your 30 minutes that cannot be postponed until tomorrow. Dig it completely, taking as much root as you can reach. Do not compost it, bag it, and send it to the trash. The silver lining: once the infected material is gone, the phytoplasma does not linger in your soil, so you can replant that spot with confidence. If this is the first time anyone has explained aster yellows to you clearly, tap the like button. Every like puts this video in front of another gardener who will meet a strange green coneflower this month and have no idea what they are looking at. Task number 4. Learn to tell aster yellows from rosette mites. Daily time required. None extra. This is knowledge you carry on the same walk. Now let me save some of you from ripping out a perfectly salvageable plant, because another culprit produces symptoms close enough to aster yellows that people confuse the two constantly, and the correct responses could not be more different. Coneflower rosette mites are microscopic Areophyid mites, far too small to see with the naked eye, that feed inside developing flower buds. Their calling card is odd-tufted, bristly green growth erupting from the top or center of the cone. Sounds exactly like aster yellows, doesn't it? The whole diagnosis comes down to one question. Is the damage confined to the flower, or is the entire plant involved? With rosette mites, the weirdness stays at the cone. Surrounding foliage keeps its normal healthy green. Stems remain full length. The plant's overall shape and vigor look completely normal. Just one odd flower head, or perhaps a few. With aster yellows, the whole plant participates in the problem. Yellowed and curling leaves, shortened stems, multiple deformed blooms, and an unmistakable stunted look from top to bottom. The responses split accordingly. Suspect rosette mites? Snip off the affected flower heads, bag and trash them, never the compost pile, and the plant itself stays in the ground. Suspect aster yellows? The entire plant comes out, as we covered in Task 3. And when you honestly cannot decide which one you are facing, do not guess. Every state runs a university extension service with a plant diagnostic laboratory. Clear photos or a physical sample will get you a confirmed answer, and that confirmation is absolutely worth the effort when one diagnosis means losing a flower and the other means losing the whole plant. This close-up detective work is exactly why the daily 30 minutes matters more than any product you could buy. You cannot diagnose what you never look at. Task number 5. Start beetle patrol. The day the first one lands. Daily time required. 5 minutes. Ideally in early morning, though any consistent time beats no time. Across most of the eastern United States, adult Japanese beetles emerge in late June and early July and feed hard straight through August. They adore coneflowers, and worse, they feed socially. Feeding beetles release aggregation pheromones, chemical signals that essentially shout that dinner is served. So one beetle on a bloom becomes 10 in short order. That is exactly why early action beats late action by a mile. Removing 5 beetles during the first week of July is dramatically easier than battling 200 during the first week of August. The most effective control I know costs nothing. Take a container of soapy water out with you, hold it beneath each coneflower bloom, and tap the beetles into it. If you can do this in early morning, even better. Beetles are cool and sluggish before the day warms, and their instinct when disturbed is to drop straight down rather than fly, right into your bucket. 5 minutes of this, daily, through the first 2 weeks of July, knocks the population back more effectively than most spray programs, and it fits neatly inside your 30-minute routine. 2 warnings while we are here. First, never place Japanese beetle pheromone traps near your coneflower beds. University research has shown those traps lure in more beetles from the surrounding neighborhood than they actually capture, which means a trap beside your garden runs a beetle recruitment drive on your behalf. Hang traps far away from anything you value, or skip them entirely. Second, never spray broad-spectrum insecticides on open blooms. July coneflowers are working landing pads for bees and butterflies at every hour of daylight, and chemical contact with an open flower exposes those pollinators, no matter what the label claims to target. If you are still with me and getting value, this is the perfect moment to subscribe and ring the bell. Every week this channel delivers specific, zone-aware, honest perennial knowledge, free, and the bell makes sure the next video actually reaches you. Task number 6. Manage disease with airflow, not spray bottles. Daily time required, a few minutes of observation, plus the occasional 10-minute cleanup session. Coneflowers growing in crowded plantings with poor air circulation develop powdery mildew, leaf spot, and crown rot at far higher rates than well-spaced plants receiving identical weather. The 3 conditions driving fungal disease, warmth, wet foliage, stagnant air, are all things you can manage culturally, and cultural fixes outlast any spray program. Powdery mildew shows up as a pale, gray-white dusty coating across leaf surfaces. When you spot it, remove the worst affected leaves, end all overhead watering immediately, and open up airflow by clearing weeds and thinning whatever is crowding the plant. Then, for the foliage that remains, mix 1 teaspoon of ordinary 3% hydrogen peroxide into a cup of water and mist it on in early morning. It kills spores on contact and leaves no residue behind. Crown rot announces itself differently: sudden wilting despite moist soil, with soft, dark tissue at the base of the stems. The instinct is to water a wilting plant more, resist it. Excess moisture is almost always part of the cause. Instead, improve drainage, cut away the rotted tissue, and drench the root zone with that same diluted hydrogen peroxide solution. It destroys the oxygen-hating pathogens and reoxygenates the root zone in one move. And a piece of general housekeeping that prevents both problems. Keep mulch 1 to 2 inches deep around your coneflowers, and pull it several inches back from the crown itself. Mulch piled against the crown traps moisture against stem tissue, and manufactures the exact warm, humid pocket crown rot thrives in. Task number 7. The 3 July mistakes to cut from your routine. Daily time required, 0. This task is about restraint. Mistake 1. Dividing in July. Coneflowers do need dividing every 3 to 4 years, when clumps get congested and bloom production slides. But the correct windows are spring, as new eyes emerge, or fall, once the heat breaks. Dividing during peak July heat hits the plant with root disturbance and temperature stress at the exact moment it holds the fewest reserves to recover. During your daily walk, simply flag the crowded clumps with a stake or a note, then divide them in September. Mistake 2. Cutting the whole plant to the ground. Every green leaf on your coneflower in July is a little solar panel, manufacturing the carbohydrate reserves that fund this season's flowers and next spring's vigor. Remove dead leaves, damaged leaves, and fully finished flower stalks, and leave every healthy green leaf exactly where it grows. Mistake 3. Fertilizing a struggling plant. A weak or pale coneflower in July is not automatically hungry. It may be drought-stressed, overcrowded, beetle-chewed, or in the early stages of disease. High nitrogen dumped onto any of those situations produces soft, leggy growth that flops over while the real problem carries on untouched. Diagnose first, treat second. For established coneflowers, a little compost worked lightly into the surrounding soil each spring is genuinely all the feeding they ever require. Here is the whole month, condensed. Deadhead by cutting above the next lateral bud, not just beneath the spent cone, and leave the strongest heads for winter birds. Check soil 6 to 8 inches down before watering established plants. Water new plantings every 2 to 3 days in heat. Keep water at the root zone, never overhead. Inspect every bloom for green color or deformity on every walk, and pull an entire aster yellows plant the same day you confirm it. Separate rosette mite damage from aster yellows before removing anything. Hand-pick Japanese beetles into soapy water daily, and keep pheromone traps far from your beds. Fight fungus with airflow, spacing, and diluted hydrogen peroxide, rather than spraying open blooms. No dividing, no cutting to the ground, no fertilizing without a diagnosis. All of it fits inside 30 minutes a day, morning, noon, or evening, whichever hour your life allows. The habit matters far more than the hour. July decides whether your coneflowers carry the garden through August and September, or quietly fade before summer peaks, and the plants standing in front of you are already telling you what they need. The only question is whether you are showing up daily to listen. If this earned it, subscribe and tap the bell so next week's video reaches you. And before you go, drop 2 things in the comments. Your state or zone, and what your coneflowers look like at this very moment. I read every single one, and your answers steer this channel directly. Now go take your 30-minute walk. Your coneflowers are waiting.